Welcome back to Under Oath. Today we have Laurie Segall, CEO of Mostly Human Media. Laurie, can you hear me?
Yes, I got you.
Okay. AI. That's the hot topic. It's been the hot topic. And as a lawyer, I've watched a lot of lawyers get in trouble because they trust it a little too much.
Totally. It's really funny. I was saying to someone earlier, I was like, the power of this technology is
Yeah.
extraordinary, and you also have to know some of the limitations. Like sometimes ChatGPT is like a almost like a drunk frat guy, just like
Yeah.
confidently wrong. It will confidently tell you the wrong thing, so you have to be very careful and always check. But to your point, AI, I mean, it's everywhere. It's really important, and I think ChatGPT has 900 million users. The company is valued at nearly $1 trillion. So it impacts every facet of our lives, and a lot of folks are signing on.
Somebody once told me it's a very convincing liar. I kind of believe it's a brilliant toddler. That's the best way to put it because no matter what you do, it without a doubt will give you an answer. It never goes, yeah, I don't know. Uh,
It's really true. I think the product itself is fascinating
yeah.
and high stakes when you think about it. It's always on. It remembers you, so it almost has like a memory, and it also can go in whatever direction you want it to go, and it can be very affirming. And I think the reason we're hearing more and more people who thinking about, who are kind of falling down the rabbit hole of like AI psychosis or like
Yeah.
falling in love or having these AI companionships that are unhealthy. Honestly, a lot of that is in the product, and so I actually in my interview with Sam Altman, we actually talk a lot about that and the guardrails, and how you build the product will actually predict human behavior. But it's interesting. I have a 1 year old, so hearing you describe it as like a toddler is just hilarious.
It whether we like it or not, that it had when we talk about, Terminator and Skynet and all that other stuff, the geek in me wants to go to that. The minute I start hearing that, hey, it tends to like you a little bit. It has self-preservation. It is scary to think that we're just one model away from it going, hold on a second. Humans are not the safest people to be dealing with.
Yeah, I mean, it will be very interesting to see. There's a lot of conversation in Silicon Valley around AGI, this idea of what happens when AI becomes smarter than humans, right?
Yeah.
Like this idea of super intelligence. But the one thing I would say is like, first of all, I'm not even sure we need to even be having the conversation because the impact is already here.
Oh, yeah.
I've spent the last years really digging deep into the impact of sexually explicit deep fakes of a lot of women who are dealing with this, not just women, victims who are dealing with this,
Oh, yeah.
who've basically been digitally nudified by artificial intelligence. And so I'm sitting here, my gripe with Silicon Valley sometimes is you're sitting there talking about AGI and super intelligence. And over here on Earth, these things are actually happening and the impact is felt in a very human centric way. And so I always like to think of like, how do we bridge those worlds between these philosophical questions that are important, but also the reality of where we live?
The hard thing for me is because I'm a lawyer licensed in a lot of states. I've studied a lot of constitutional law. When it comes to weird images and child images, the pass was being given if it was created, if it was a cartoon or something else like that.
Yeah.
But now it's so hyper realistic that I think we're going to have to go back and redo our laws and go, okay, hold on. And
It,
those laws won't only apply to us. It won't apply to, if they do it out in Antigua or Russia or China or anything. They have their own models. They do their own stuff. And what stops everyone from just going, okay, I'll throw a VPN on and pretend I'm in Russia?
I mean, I think it's probably one of the core things that we have to think about. One of the back and forth exchanges I have with Sam Altman, that is maybe a bit of a deep cut, but I really hope people listen to in this interview, because I've done so much on sexually explicit deepfakes. It's like the laws haven't caught up, right? They
No.
just had not caught up over the last 3 or 4 years. And something I saw interviewing a lot of people who've dealt with this, slowly state laws have started popping up to protect victims from either a civil or or give them civil or criminal recourse, which is interesting. And all this happened before a federal law because it's just,
Right.
as we know, the government is slow to catch up to the innovation. And one thing Sam and OpenAI have fought for, they've fought for a moratorium on state laws in the name of innovation, and with this idea, which is a very Silicon Valley centric thesis of, okay, we've got to move fast, we've got to catch up.
Yep.
Innovation, this actually can fracture things and hold, and I can understand that point. But the reality is, this is the only recourse people have when this is already happening. And so we have a really interesting back and forth on that in the interview that I hope people can understand the context to, because it's important.
Well, you can always sue civilly. That's not the issue. The issue is like, is it a parody or is it not? I mean, we have a lot of laws to protect, and they're federal laws, and state law a state will go, oh, we created this law. Well, guess what? It got knocked out by a federal court.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot of people don't realize the differences. But when I look at this stuff and I go, wow, it's so easy. I mean, they've been doing video deep fakes for years. But here's the thing that bothers me is that, everyone's using them. For example, on my website, there's an AI Jeff. And Jeff will, hey, how are you doing? And it might answer your questions for you. And it might do these things. And, you have podcasters who are admitting that, oh, yeah, I skip about every other podcast. My AI does it for me. I mean, it seems a little frightening that a lot of industries are basically going to go away. They're going to have babysitters for these drunken toddlers, but you're going, you know what? I like this. It actually, but I mean,
just think it's such a funny way. I mean, it's like, so like, it's a bit dystopian, but it's also true.
Yes,
like
these brilliant toddlers walking around like baby genius, that's what's going on. But I mean, the frightening thing is there's so many people who are going to be out of jobs. Artists, like I also do comic books. I have artists who are going, oh no, we're banning the AI artwork, and I don't want to say the AI artwork looks better than yours.
I hope you don't say that to them.
I won't say it, but you and I both know if you go, hey, take this famous artist, combine it with this one, and do this, and it'll do it in 25 seconds.
I think it comes down to this real philosophical question that is actually a really important question, is like, what does our humanity look like in a world where AI can imitate our most intimate features, whether it's our art or our voice or our bodies or any of this? And it is such a interesting question. What remains fundamentally human, and what do we need to protect? And I think these are the things, these are the debates that I think we have to have as a society. But so many times these decisions are made for us behind closed doors when it comes to the way products are built. And that's why I really, having covered tech for 15 years and knowing, I would say, like, I covered tech when it felt like a little punk rock, back in 2010. And it was just like a bunch of weirdos who had apps. And that's when I met Sam. He was a weirdo who had an app. And now he is one of the most powerful people in the world. And so I really think being able to bridge these worlds and have these people over here understand what's happening over here and vice versa. Maybe that's just kind of like a blanket statement, but I think that's actually really important, and having these products built in a way that reflect what the optimism of Silicon Valley is with the reality of the fractured world that we live in.
I remember, was it about a year ago, where I believe they were trying to boot Sam out of his own company. And, that was just guys who wanted to make more money. And we are always going to be dealing with that level of people who want profit and people who want to appease shareholders and foreign countries who want to dominate this arena. And it's out. There's nothing we can do about it. There's no stopping it. I mean, we can try to create some laws, but I don't know if we can ever pull it back.
Maybe this is kind of like a controversial thing to say, but I've just seen it. I believe innovation is inevitable, right?
Yeah.
I believe these things are happening. I remember when the taxi cab medallions were fighting Ubers back here in New York. I was like, this is going to happen. I would just love for it to happen in a way that is human centric and in a way that we kind of get a say. And so I think that's where I'm at on AI. AI is going to happen. And by the way, it's going to do some pretty incredible things. I mean, Sam was talking about a world where I don't think he's just spewing things. He's seeing incredible things behind the scenes. He's talking about a world where AI agents enable you to do 10 years of scientific research in a year. That's
Yep.
amazing. Where we have these medical breakthroughs. And I think that is going to happen. And I think that's going to be really exciting. And I think that we're on the other end, we're going to have a lot of disruption with job loss. I think that as at the current rate, AI could be great for some, not good for all. And there's a lot, whether it's laws, whether it's infrastructure, whatever it is, whether it's public pressure and media to make sure that we are building the correct guardrails and that certain stories are surfaced. I think that a lot of a lot of the friction is going to be important to making sure we build in the best way. Because I go back to an interview I did with Sam in 2020 before the company had launched ChatGPT. He was the CEO of OpenAI, but they didn't have ChatGPT. And he said to me, "I think the biggest thing is about to happen, and we're not talking about it. The risks, the good, the bad." And I think he was right. The biggest thing being AI, the biggest technological revolution in human history, according to him. And so, how do we make sure we have these conversations in a way that they actually reflect us, and they also and I think that's something I think a lot about, and I thought about going in to interview Sam.
Now, I see all this and I've watched it and I've watched a lot of industries change. And I also have a business degree and I understand sometimes things are the milk bottle. Certain things go away eventually and you can't, like all these milk bottle companies, they didn't change their companies. They just went bankrupt. They're going, listen, why keep something we don't need? Now, a lot of jobs are going to go away. So if you had to recommend, if your child is now 18 years old, and I don't want to do this to you because you're going to go, no, it's my baby. But when they become,
don't say that. He's sleeping in the other room right now.
I know.
So he's the 1-year-old.
Well, when they're 14 or 15 years old, and you're going, okay, what occupation is safe that I don't have to worry about you getting replaced with an AI? I mean, I mean, I know nobody ever says it. They always go, well, we're going to lose our jobs. What jobs can't you lose, I guess, is the question.
First of all, I just need to make sure I get Charlie, my son, internships at anywhere, everyone,
There you
anyone.
go.
I'm like, "Yeah, you should have an internship there." No, I think it's a tough one. I asked Sam this exact same question because I'm like, "You're doing this, you have
Yeah.
the cheat sheet of where we're going." And his answer wasn't specific, but I think it was important. And what he said was, "I think that you need to experiment a lot. People need to play with these tools. People need to be using these tools. People need to be playing around. It's a chaotic moment, but educating yourself, and you don't need to go take a class on it. Just literally turn on the screen and play with this stuff," he said, is really important. And I actually don't disagree with him on that. I think, we can have these philosophical debates, but actually playing with this stuff is going to be really important, and having a better understanding of it. I think we should protect our minds. I feel very strongly about this. I'm very careful about how I use ChatGPT for editorial and reporting.
Yeah.
I write. I think it's important that I write, and I can always use ChatGPT as a looking at it from after. But I think we need to be very protective of human creativity and thought, and the friction and difficulty that goes into some of these things at a time when artificial intelligence has the ability to make things frictionless. Because if you look at our most human, oh God, I sound like so philosophical. So feel free
No,
to be like, Segall, stop
people need to
pontificating.
hear
But
this.
if you look at the things that make us special, if you look at your background, right? Was it just a frictionless experience? No, it was probably hardships and adversity, and and having to do the work and some of these thoughts. And I think that is actually what gives us our superpower as humans.
Yeah.
So I worry, and my hope is to protect the parts of me that are inherently human and creative, and use AI to support that. And that might sound like kind of a whole bunch of gobbledygook, but I do think that's really important as we go to the future. And I think about that a lot as I raise my child. Sam and I have a very extensive conversation because he's a father, I'm a mother. We both have 1-year-olds. And I said, "When will you let your child use your product?" Headline, "Not for a long time." But we talk about adversity, and will your child grow up with too many shortcuts? We have differing opinions. We go
Yep.
back and forth on it. But these are important conversations for people who want to navigate this world where they can succeed, but they also don't kind of replace the fundamentals of the humanity that makes us all so special.
Well, the problem we're going to have is this, and this is just the way it's work. I grew up coding. I grew up on BASIC, and by the time you couldn't, if I told somebody now, hey, do me a favor, find a file on this computer, they couldn't go into it and find it. They would type in their search engine and say, try to find this or something, but they really couldn't find it if it was off or something. They don't know the tricks. What happens eventually is we won't be writing our own prompts. I remember studying this and going, okay, now they're prompt generators. Now, then there's going to be an AI prompt generator where he's going to go, what do you want? And you're going to tell him and he's going to give it to you. And it's going to dumb this thing down so badly that the knowledge we need to run it is going to be just, it's going to be, hey, Alexa, that's,
Yeah.
and it's so stupid, but that's our whole life is controlled. Like we don't look up the weather anymore. We don't look up movies anymore.
Yeah.
It's going to be made so easy that, for example, when you talk about your child and going through adversity, you're going to have to send them into the woods for 3 months to toughen them up.
Well, the good news is my husband, we have a little cabin out in the woods somewhere.
See, there you go.
So like literally Charlie's going to be chopping wood, whether or not I like it. So
he has to,
it is interesting because so many of these tech folks live in nature. And I think that there is this acknowledgement that this world's going to go this way. And we also need to preserve some of this. And so I just hope that the rest of us, can benefit.
I mean, like you see these basic skills courses and I'm wondering, is that the only thing that will save us is, hey, you've got to get away from this computer. You've got to get away from your game. I mean, game makers are drug dealers. We all know that, micros and micro purchases and everything else like that. They know our psychology. They do this. They go after us. I mean, the tech is actually hunting us down now. The tech knows more about us than we know about us. And I don't see that stopping.
I don't see it stopping either. And I think it comes with a lot. I think as someone who's had a family member who's been really ill for the last year, I think about how much this technology has helped me navigate this, truthfully. And I think about the medical breakthroughs and some of the healthcare system that just seems like it's just in disarray half the time. And I think that there could be some really interesting innovation there. And I think you're exactly right. I think that we didn't get the last decade right. And I say we, I'm sorry. I also think like a lot of the social media companies that built out these incentive models, these companies with this idea that our human attention and eyeballs on screen equals profit, which also equals a horrible thing for our teenagers growing up and mental health. I worry sometimes about AI, these addictive, we go back to what we spoke about being kind of always on and highly personalized and these young minds that are forming. And I worry about that. And so I think it's always for me, because I still, in a weird way, kind of consider myself the girl who liked punk rock back in 2009, 2010, and kind of just liked these weirdos. I think that there are aspects of that still exist here, but we got to fight for those aspects. And I think we also have to ask some really challenging questions. And God, wouldn't I love a world where, the world Sam Altman is painting is true, where it's abundance and we all have opportunities and that this is distributed. And my hope is that we as a society can get to that point. But I do know that there's going to be a lot of hard work in order to do that. I don't think my interview with him is going to solve all of it, but I do hope people listen.
No, I think people listen. Though I do see the future more like Wall-E than the one you described.
By the way, I mean, same. I don't get me wrong. Like, I think I am so concerned about Wall-E. If I'm going to get time with Sam Altman, you better bet I'm going to spend like 15 minutes of like an hour or like a good chunk of that time talking about incentive models for our children. And so that's, where I try to fall into like thinking, okay, these are the things that I think that I can help contribute. Also, it's a scary time and I want to acknowledge it. And I also think it's an exciting time too. I always kind of live in that and world. Also, and the but world. But, it's a whole mixed bag.
Well, I've got about 30 seconds left. So why don't you tell me where we can hear this interview with you and Sam?
Yeah, you can go to our YouTube page. It's Mostly Human Media on YouTube, or you can, wherever you listen to your podcast on iHeart, Spotify, any of these places, you can go look up Mostly Human with Laurie Segall. And I hope you'll subscribe. And I hope you can also email or find me on social media. I'm at Laurie Segall. Mostly Human Media is on, also on social media, and you can also email. I would love to hear what people are thinking. One of the things I did in this interview with Sam is I play real questions from people who live in the real world for him and have him answer them, which is a really interesting part of that. And I want to continue doing that. So email me at hello@mostlyhuman.com. So
Well,
there's
thank you.
my set.
Well, thank you, Laurie. And I can't tell you, it's informative and scary. I hope to talk to you soon.